Every time we upload a document to Code Interpreter, we need to think about how we're going to use it. Now, when I say document, I mean any file, anything that we are giving it to work on and operate on. Thinking through how we're going to use that document is really important because it's going to change the patterns of interaction we use significantly. Depending on what we want to do with it, we're going to have to interact with Code Interpreter differently. Now, here are the two models. The first one is the document as an object, as a file that we're working on. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we are going to go and take the file, for example, and we're going to rename the file, or we're going to take an image and we're going to crop the image, or we're going to download that file or something like that, we're thinking about it as an object. Now, I've put together a list. I've had Code Interpreter generate a list. Now, not all of these things are probably completely appropriate. I'm not sure that we can print documents like is shown here, but the idea behind this are we operating on the file itself, the document? Are we trying to edit it? Are we trying to concatenate it with another file? Are we trying to copy it? Are we trying to move it to a new folder? Are we trying to rename it? Think about those types of things on the file itself, the document as an object that we're going to modify in some way. Or are we using it as a source of knowledge? And this is really, really important because when we start using it as a source of knowledge, particularly textual, natural language knowledge that we want to be brought into GPT-4 for some type of analysis, then we're going to work with it in a very different way. So when we start talking about analyzing it or summarizing it or outlining it or reading it or interpreting it or searching through it for something, all of these things typically we're going to want to do by thinking about it as a source of knowledge. And typically the most effective way to do these type of knowledge-based operations when we're dealing with natural language in a document. So if it's words and we want it to interpret the words, then we want to think of it as a document as knowledge, and that's an operation that we're going to want to do differently, and we're going to want to talk about differently, and we want to sort of handle very, very carefully because we're going to get very different results on how Code Interpreter decides to go and perform an operation that deals with knowledge. Now, when it comes to document as object, that's a much more straightforward thing to do. If we want to rename files and we want to copy files, we want to resize an image, those types of things are much more straightforward. The more difficult things are when we start looking at the knowledge inside of a document. And that's where we have to be very, very careful and very intentional in the patterns of interaction we use to make sure that the knowledge is extracted and represented appropriately, and that GPT-4 is doing the analysis of that language and doing it effectively. So we're going to deal a lot with looking at how do we structure our interactions for these two different use cases on operating on the document as a file versus operating on the document as a source of knowledge where we need to go and really interpret and understand that knowledge and take action based on it.